I'm thrilled to welcome to a segment of Bach Talk, Sophia Gilmson, who is the person I've learned most from in most recent years. You've heard me invoke her name numerous times in master classes and lectures, and Sophia is a well of information, and we are mutual friends in our love of Bach. And I think there's been no one I wanted to speak to more than Sophia Gilmson, and so I want to welcome you, Sophia, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Very kind of you. You know, every time I read in your notes, as Sophia said, I startle. Did I say it?
Always have great sayings. Always very important.
Thank you.
Live very important truths. And we came together. We've been speaking regularly over the course of the pandemic. Really, we had a mutual friend, Brett Bacchus, another great lover of Bach and scholar, who thought that we would immediately have a camaraderie based on our love of Bach. And you were in the early days of my video series on the well-tempered clavier. You were extraordinarily generous in your praise, and it was always encouraging to do my work and learn all of these, being perpetual students as you and I are, to learn all of these things about the well-tempered clavier, and have you as my sounding board, and keeping my feet to the fire, and not letting any half measures go by. You've been really a wonderful sounding board and mentor, really, in my Bach work. So thank you.
Gosh.
I want to start with where Bach came into your life, how Bach first changed your life.
I don't know if he changed my life, because he has been with me for so long and from such an early age. I don't think he changed it. He was just there with me all the time. And of course, I attribute it to my wonderful teacher at that time, who introduced pieces from Anna Magdalena to me in such a way that it immediately has become a part of my life. I just liked it. It was not an effort. It was not anything. And it was so early that I don't remember what she did. I don't remember what she said. Apparently, it was done in a very skilled way, that it was so natural that I don't remember it. So when Bach entered, he was kind enough never to leave me.
Well, you have taken this natural standpoint and this natural reaction and interaction with Bach's music and with music making on a very elementary, not to say elementary, but elemental level. So in other words, one of your programs has an aspect called Save the Best for the Beginners.
It's one of my workshops. I really believe that early training is so utmost important. If it were up to me, I would allow only the best teachers to work with beginners. They would have to be specially certified, in my opinion, in my ideal world, because, you know, the demands on teachers who work with young beginners are so great that unless you really know what you are doing, you cannot do it well. And at that time, we lay foundation for future success or a failure. It's an extremely important part of training. You know, when a young mother gets home from a newborn baby, in the hospital, they give her a collection of booklets. They probably think she will have time to read. Yeah. And all these booklets emphasize that the care of the infant in the first year of life is vitally important, vitally. You know, it's important in the second year, in the third year, and God forbid in teenage years and whatever. But first year, it's vitally important. I really believe that it applies to us piano teachers who do work with young students, hopefully knowing where it leads. And quite often, I unfortunately see that teachers of young students are so overwhelmed with enormous tasks. They teach everything at once. And they teach everything at once to a person who really wants to tell you about his new puppy. You know, they're so just busy that they quite often lose or don't even have a picture of a future major repertoire. On another hand, our wonderful artist teachers who work with advanced pianists, if you place a 6-year-old in front of them, most likely it won't work. Because, you know, first you need to learn how to play the piano, then you come to me, right? So if this teacher does not know where it's going, and this teacher does not know where it comes from, then how does the entire process occur? And of course, life placed me into that wonderful intersection that allowed me to explore everything from the first touch to an artist repertoire in the highest level. So I'm just a very fortunate person.
Well, the thing I found most fascinating in watching your videos, I saw a collection of pieces of footage of a beginner,
Uh-huh.
um, and she was making this incredible sound and this incredible arc like a rainbow, uh,
Mm-hmm.
playing with fully weighted touch and with a very graceful motion, hitting the key and then lifting again and finding that rainbow and coming down again and making this beautiful sound. And as you say, it's like the foundation of a great artist.
Absolutely.
How do you break that down? How did that come to you?
Haha, you want me to speak about those initial first steps? They, you know, uh, great pedagogues, especially those who work with young beginners, they know that the pace and sequence are two decisive factors. If you know what comes after what, and if you know when to make the next step, you're in a good place. If by the lack of experience, lack of intuition, a lack of pedagogical training, or whatever reason might be, if you jump from step 1 to step 7, it's not going to work. You would have to retrace yourself and to find out what is step 2. So what you saw, if I remember correctly, that recording of the 5-year-old, a charming, she was such a doll. You know, when she first came to me, she was 5.5 maybe. The first thing she did, she gave me a hug. And you know where that hug was? At my knees. Because that's where she was. Yeah. It was such a joy to work with her. And what you saw on that video, I didn't mark number of the lessons, but knowing how I do it, most likely it was her 3rd lesson. It all starts with a free-falling arm. And the free-falling arm seems to be such a natural thing to do, and yet you have to prepare it. So before we even get to touching the piano, we do several preparatory exercises when a child and we play ballerina. Yes, with girls. Boys will not do it. So with boys, it's a tired soldier. Yeah. And we would stand. I'm not going to stand now because you will lose me from your screen. So let's pretend that I'm standing, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And you drop it. And just as we have done it a few times, I will do it with a cadence. Are you going to be my 6-year-old now?
Yes, please.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes,
Is that good?
that was very nice.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not good at praising, considering my upbringing.
Yes.
I forget to praise because you know what? If it is good, there is nothing to talk about. Let's move on.
It's the next thing. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it was good. Good job. Yeah. So what you heard right now, you've heard that to dominant and we drop. And of course, at this point, we know nothing about dominant toning.
Right.
But the instinct,
An expectation.
educated instinct, immediately leads us into and drop. So once the body gets the feel of this free, yeah, it's free falling arm, that's it. And I would come to the child and I would kind of pick it. Do I feel the weight?
Right. Wow. Mm-hmm.
And then I would let her to hold my arm. And she would tell me, you are fat. At that point, it's a greatest compliment.
Yes.
It means she feels the
weight.
yes. And then I ask her, let it go. What's going to happen? Why does it fall? I ask. Every 6-year-old knows about gravity. And of course, I conduct this experiment that never failed me. Do you see?
Yes.
I'm going to let it go. Do you know what's going to happen?
Yes.
Always.
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 Dependable.
So you imagine if I let it go and it doesn't go. We need to explore it. Why? And of course, I will not talk about muscles. I will not talk about tension. It will all be based upon sense, physical sense.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get that free-falling arm, we got to something that I call an adoration of your hand. Well, look, the piano is the most ergonomic instrument. If you compare with, can you imagine on violin, you hold it this way, you press it with, and at the same time, you're supposed to stay relaxed and you shake it here and you move it. I mean, come on now. Yeah.
Even the best statue of Paganini is a complete caricature.
It's just against human body, okay?
Right.
And I hope violinists who are listening to us now, if they do, will forgive me because I love to play with them. If we look at the human hand, we see immediately that we don't need to work on a hand position because the hand position is already there. Mm-hmm. You know, if you look at the normal hand, you will see the knuckles are showing. These little knuckles are also showing. You will never see anyone walking along the beach.
No.
I mean, even if you sit in a dental office waiting for your appointment, this will not happen because normal hand does not do it. So, if you place your hand over your knee, will you do it for me, please?
Yes.
This is your perfect hand position. And you see how your fingers are flowing over your knee, showing the knuckles because they do. Do you have to curve your hand? No. And if, God forbid, you curve your fingers, you try to play the piano. So the words such as curve your fingers, they are not in my vocabulary. Yeah, I must say that this place your hand over your knee is not my idea. It's by a great Russian musician, teacher, pedagogue, Safonov, who has said it in early 1900s. And I'm sure he was not the only one who said it, because that's what it is. And you know, books are written about hand position. Dissertations are defended on hand position. There is no such a thing as position. You know, if it is position, you cannot play, because the hand has to breathe and to move at all the time. Yeah. So that is our next step. We are admiring our hand. Yes. Very beautiful hand. May I feel your weight? May I feel your arm? Yes. Now, being a good teacher you are, take a look at my left hand. You see how my fingertips are under the knuckles, and my ball of my hand is under the wrist. I am in total control of a child's hand. We practice the wrist motion alone. The hand is resting on the lap comfortably. And if you ask yourself which part of your arm initiates the motion, it's not the shoulder.
No.
It's not the elbow. It's a wrist that takes forearm to wherever it needs to go. So we are practicing that hand motion. Let's imagine that this is a keyboard. Yeah, because I cannot show you. Maybe I can.
Well, here, I've got a keyboard right here, as it happens.
Okay. So put your hand down on your knee.
Yep.
And now ask your wrist to start the motion. Your wrist. Yes. And bring it onto the keys. And place your hand on the keys anywhere you like. You did very good job. You didn't go to middle C. It's a good thing not to do, because it would immediately, yeah. So go somewhere here, somewhere there, and you see how your wrist brought you to the key. Yes. Okay, stay where you are, my child. Okay, your wrist will move slowly up until your fingertips separate from the keys, and you will go back to your knee. Very nice. Yes. So we practice that several times until this gesture. Whether you play it on piano, on harpsichord, we do need breathing wrist. Yes, and we need fingertips that are not curved, but the fingertips that are ready to kiss the key. To kiss the key. Yes, because it's love. You know what we do here, it's love. Yeah. Okay, remember what we did? We explored a free falling arm. We admired our hand shape. I securely placed my hand underneath to ensure that knuckles are supported and the wrist is breathing. Okay, we haven't made the sound yet. We are preparing it. All right. Of course, in my work with a child, I don't talk. I just do it. So it goes much faster than it goes now. Okay. So now that we know all the important elements, we are ready to make the sound, but be patient. We are bringing the hand on the keys, and we already know how to do it, right? And now the hand will breathe. And now it will fall. And we made a beautiful sound because it was done by a free falling arm that produces the best sound possible on any piano or not piano, period. Okay, now I want to remind to you that as a teacher, I have two hands. Yeah. One hand is under the student hand to support knuckles and wrist. And my other hand supports nail joint. With my two, yes, because I know that nail joint does not know yet that it's not supposed to bend in.
Not supposed to collapse, yes.
No. And if I'm going to tell student to do anything with a
Oh no.
joint,
No,
I
no.
will immediately get,
Stress. It's
yes.
stress. Yeah. Mhm.
I don't say anything, I just do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So look what we have just done. Let me repeat the whole process. Nice, huh?
Really nice. Beautiful. Even on
And
Zoom.
now, at this very point, I do something that I actually do with students of all the ages, and I do it with myself. We sit and listen through the sound for as long as it lasts. And then I ask, actually, I have some videos on that with young students. I can show it to you. When we ask them to listen through the sound, and when the sound is gone completely, raise your hand to show me that the sound is gone. Okay? So here we are sitting and we are doing nothing. We are listening. Okay, now you can take your hand off.
But that's experiencing every sound in its capacity as beginning, middle, and end, you know?
Well, I tell you, you cannot overestimate the importance of this simple exercise. From the physical viewpoint, my two hands is underneath and around, which means the hand remembers how it feels without me saying anything. But the fact that an average sound in the middle of the keyboard would last for about 22, 24 seconds. Look, if my 6-year-old or 5-year-old or whatever year old at the first lesson can sit and listen for 24 seconds, that's my pedagogical victory.
I agree. I totally agree.
What happens with this listening, 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 listening? Little by little, we realize that the sound changes not only in its volume, but also in its color. The sound of life is very complex. If I were graphically to describe the life of sound, I probably would have a dot and then a little bump. You know that sound makes natural crescendo right after it was born. Yeah. Well, we are on Zoom. I have no idea what you hear on your
No,
end.
I know exactly what there is a crest to the sound that
Yes. I
is
mean,
not normally.
on my end, it sounds fabulous.
It sounds great here too. Yes.
Okay. So that little, and then it starts going down, but not like this. It goes down.
Gradually.
And a very interesting thing about the end of the sound, you know, the sound never stops. It simply goes somewhere where we cannot follow it. And we experiment with all of this without naming it at the first lesson. And that's what on a third lesson would bring us to the keyboard, to the rainbow, which will allow us to experience a continuous wrist motion, because you see what happens. The upward motion becomes the beginning of downward motion, and downward motion becomes the beginning of upward motion.
Literal wave. Yeah.
So as long as we have this breathing sensation, there is no room for tension. At the same time, we learn a lot of important things about the keys locations, about higher and lower, about embracing the entire keyboard instead of sitting in the middle of it. So each one of these exercises has very far-going consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on that rainbow exercise with that little girl that you are going to show, those are our first steps. So when I do my programs about Bach, my prelude to my talk is listening through the long sound. That is the first thing I do with my class or with my group of piano teachers or whoever my listeners are at my workshop. Collectively, we sit and listen through the long sound for as long as we can hear. Where will we need it? In all the polyphony, where one voice sustains and other voices are moving around. Unless we hear that long note in polyphonic texture, we don't hear all the voices. We need to go by the long note, not by the fast notes. Fast notes will make themselves heard. They are moving.
Yes, correct.
The long note cannot help itself. It fades. I have a whole workshop that is called Sound Fades, Help. Yeah, because pianists are the only musicians who are facing this challenge. We cannot do anything with the sound after we produced it. So the only thing we can and must do is to listen through its life, being with it. And that would tell us how to play other voices. It's fundamental, absolutely. Now, interesting thing is that when I have transferred students, and you understand, every college student is a transferred student. He comes to you with years of habits, hopefully more good habits than not so good habits, but you never know what proportion of habits you are going to get. And I will not exaggerate if I say that majority of most talented students who are playing advanced repertoire, and rightfully so, they do have tension somewhere. What do you think I'm going to do with them to help them to get rid of that tension? I will do this exercise of dropping into single non-legato notes until they begin to feel the beauty of gravity.
Yeah.
Because you see, gravity is something that eventually makes us look old. But when it comes to piano playing, it's our best friend. So what I have discussed right now, I can have more details. I just was merciful, yes. But what we talked about right now, I use it at absolutely every level of development of any student. And what do you think about listening through the long note? Will I do with someone who plays Scriabin Fifth Sonata? Yes, I will.
Yes.
I remember one of my students who had been with me for a good 6 years, he came to me when he was 12, and he stayed with me through the entire high school, and then he went to major in computer science. Yes. Yes, but we had very productive time together. He culminated with Schumann concerto that he played with orchestra as a concerto competition winner. And what pleased me tremendously in one of our lessons, we were working on a set of Rachmaninoff preludes. There were long notes there,
Yes.
And he said, look at this. Bach sits here and looks at me and asks me if I hear that long note through the very end. I thought I did something right.
So gratifying, absolutely.
The long notes. Yes, that's usually my prelude to any type of Bach-related workshop.